Hey, we're here for another episode of Regenerative Inspiration. We got Patrick Dennis, CEO of Avaya. We've been friends for a little bit. We've skied together. I've been to your home. We were served on a board together.
That's true.
You're here in Colorado, and one of the people that I would say surprises me all the time, like when you see an update on LinkedIn, you're like, wait, you're with another company. Wait, you're doing what? Like, how are you doing all these things? And so when I asked him to come on, he immediately said yes. And I was so grateful for that because you've gone through so many different things. And then I found out about a few other things as well.
Okay.
But, let's start. I mean, you are an American entrepreneur and you've been all over the world. You're currently the CEO of Avaya. And tell me how you got there.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess, I was born on a farm, so it's an unlikely path in upstate New York. And I wound up working for Eastman Kodak Company, which you and I would know because you like cameras, nobody else probably knows who they were. They did a really great job training me. It was interesting. I thought I was going to be an engineer. And they came down the hall one day and they said, we think we're going to have plenty of engineers. So we think these computers are going to be a thing. And so I wound up in school for computer science. Wound up working in big tech for a while. So I did Oracle and EMC, did a bunch of different jobs there, and wound up working on the edge of doing mergers and integration for those guys, and sort of realized, oh, okay, like that could be cool to go someplace smaller. So my first opportunity was at Guidance Software in Pasadena, California. So, left Boston, went to Pasadena, ran Guidance, sold Guidance. After that, did a stint in private equity that I often jokingly call my professional, post-grad work. That led me to a company called Aspect Software. So we bought that company, sold it a couple of years later. Aspect led to ExtraHop, which we recapped. ExtraHop led to Venafi, which we sold last year, to CyberArk, who just got sold to Palo Alto. And somewhere in that process, I became the chairman of the board at Avaya. And about a year ago now, they came to me and said, the CEO would like to retire and we'd like you to go occupy the CEO chair. And since you just sold your other company, you seem to be open, and here we are. So that is the wildly abbreviated version of that story.
I know that's abbreviated because I know there's a lot of different convolutions in there for sure.
Yeah, there's a lot of stories inside that story.
Yeah. Well, I didn't know you were raised on a farm. I was raised on a farm too.
Yeah.
Honestly, with the name of Garlic Media Group, my dad became a gourmet garlic farmer at 74, inspiring us you could do anything in life at any age, right?
Yeah.
But it's like we always had at least some of every animal and a lot of things planted.
Well, you've returned to that, right? You have animals now again, right?
I do.
Yeah.
I do. Yeah, I absolutely love the ranch life. It's great.
It's cool.
So love it. Yeah, actually I was at a friend's house this morning out picking blackberries, So
yeah. I haven't quite figured out, now that I live downtown, I haven't quite figured out how to tell my wife that I want to put goats on the balcony, but I'll give it a try.
There's some countries where you could go to, they have examples of goats on balconies.
That's true.
Yeah,
that's true.
Maybe figure that part out. No roosters downtown though.
That's true. No roosters downtown.
I don't know if there's goats or not allowed.
I don't know. I'll have to check. There we go.
That's very interesting. It's we won't go down that path.
Okay.
So tell me a little bit about, you're also a restaurateur, right? So you started a restaurant as well, and it didn't go off as well as you planned. So can you tell me a little bit about that? And
yeah, so there's many of us, some of the professional success has given me the chance to do some other things that we wanted to do. So during COVID, the restaurant business got kind of disproportionately impacted, and we had some really good friends that were in that business, sort of in, just think of it as middle management. And we all looked at each other and were like, hey, maybe this is the exact right time for us to open a restaurant. And so four of us got together. We bought a space got a space in Whittier, used to be called the Whittier Pub, renoed it basically during COVID, then did all the menu development and concept development and launched it, a few years back now, right kind of as COVID lifted. And listen, it's great. It's top rated restaurant on 5280. It's got all sorts of great reviews. Our team is awesome. But yeah, certainly not easy. Renos aren't easy. right? The restaurant business generally isn't easy. We unfortunately, and I think this is probably, where you were going, lost our original opening chef shortly after opening. And so, that's sad for a lot of reasons. We loved the guy, and also obviously could take a business off track. So you kind of get that far down a path and get the whole thing put together, and you have sort of an obstacle like that. But, like many things in life, you kind of just have to kind of find your way through it. The restaurant, I think in those moments, you get pushed back to figure out what's the core. Mm-hmm. And, that is a restaurant that wants to put, like, by the way, it's called Point Easy. And so part of the idea behind Point Easy is like good food, nice time.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, it's not always easy to find a restaurant where you get good food and can have a nice time. Right. It's what it should be, but it's not always that easy. And so kind of at the core was, hey, how do we put a curated set of, farmers together with us? How do we put together a really curated pasta program and get that in front of a guest for a reasonable amount of money in an environment where they can have a really, really nice time? And so you see a lot of things in our restaurant that I think kind of pop through that you wouldn't find in some place that's, more big production oriented. Right. And so, the restaurant business changes all the time. Like, it's sort of structured in what used to be called farm to table. These days, a lot of people call that New American. But it's set up to have a great pasta program, a handful of really curated dishes that we change really frequently. We know all the farmers, many of them, we're down the street from Boulder. So we have lots of Boulder farm influence. We have like oysters that are flown in all the time. It's great. We love it. Anybody that's working in the kitchen can get one of their ideas on the menu, which is also pretty special.
That's very special. I don't know that I've ever heard that potential.
Yeah. If you put up a dish, if you put up a dish and that dish is good, we'll put it on the menu. So it's been great. It's also been an unusual journey, right? Every chef that has worked at the restaurant as part of the process comes to the house on Sunday and I cook for them.
Now that's completely unique.
It is. It's a little bit of the part of the process to see, well, you've gone through this. It's different when you work in an industry and like now you're on this side of the camera.
Yeah.
I like to see chefs on the other side of the table. Mm-hmm. And I'm an okay cook on my own. So, it's not quite as terrifying for me, but yeah, that's part of our process. And then I guess one other fun thing is, almost every Super Bowl, the whole restaurant comes to our house and, we cook for everybody and just have a good time.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. That's unique. And I know the culture in restaurants and the service industry is difficult, right? And it sounds like you took that on initially, like right off the bat, made sure there's the right systems and everything else. And yeah, and that there's always ups and downs. And I mean, honestly, restaurants and food, it's not easy. Like I think it's a sexy thing that people want to have a restaurant or a nice place, and then you're just like, man, this kind of sucks.
Yeah, it's definitely not for the faint of heart. It's not easy. Yeah, there's challenges every day. We put a lot of time and effort into the staff, and I think that's really pretty unique. People that have been coming to the restaurant since its opening still get to see some of the same people working there, and that's just not how this usually goes.
Yeah.
And it's actually sort of sad because it doesn't necessarily take a lot, just a little bit of recognition, fairness, treat people well, things that, you and I might just take for granted. They're not things in that industry.
Yeah.
So we try to bring a pinch of that.
Yeah. I mean, there's obviously always customer service at the root of every business, right? That the absolute 100% you have to have that.
Yep.
But a lot of times people feel like the staff or people on the team are just part of the cog and they have to be treated well so it can also replicate that, right?
It's really important to us if somebody kind of doesn't get along with the core part of the team, that gets handled pretty quickly. I also would give a ton of credit. Ruben is the chef right now. And I've worked with different chefs. Ruben is really, really good with his team and has really fostered an environment where they care about each other back there. And, I've worked the line a couple of times back there. Like most people that go to a restaurant don't realize, like, it's hot, it's small. Ours is really well appointed. It's still hot and small, right? You have to get things done within, a handful of seconds of one another. So it's a really, really interesting experience for most people. And so to think of someone that can manage that, like the heat, the speed, the pace, the demands, and then still bring a little bit of humanity to it, that's a special, special guy. Ruben's wonderful.
That's awesome. Well, and we talked a little bit about some of the things where it doesn't always go the way you planned. And, unfortunately, you did lose a chef right off the bat. But also in your other businesses, things didn't go as planned either, right? Talk to me about some of the other things that you've done on the business side, because I know there's been mergers, I know there's been fundraising. Yeah. Talk to me about those people that are out there right now, maybe in a similar situation where like, well, do I talk to somebody in the M&A side? Do I talk to this finance side? What should I be acquired? Should I acquire? Like, I mean, there's a lot there. Can you give us a little bit of wisdom that you've seen over the last, couple of decades here on that?
Yeah, I'm going to try to take like a complicated topic and make it easy. So this could go either really well or really poorly, but high wire act, let's give it a try. So, there was this COVID thing, and part of the response to the COVID thing was around the world, people sort of just printed money, and that's had a lot of consequences. A lot of people don't kind of realize this, but really at the top level, there's kind of monetary policy and fiscal policy. Those two things have an interplay. I guess it's more common to talk about it today because in this administration, that's a thing that's been talked about. But if you think about it, over the last 20 years, that was not a topic most people had ever heard of. So anyway, one of the consequences of that period of time was it created a pocket that we, in my line of work, would refer to as ZIRP. And it's the period of time where there was a zero interest rate policy. And so what that meant was people had a dollar and could invest a dollar knowing they weren't going to pay any interest on that dollar. Well, you don't have to be super sophisticated to kind of figure out that meant more people had more dollars to invest, and invested them maybe a little bit more freely than they would have if they had been paying interest, right? The consequence of that is, and you can see this in kind of M&A deal flow, there were a lot of deals done during that period of time. And by the way, many of them were done at higher premiums. So where we find ourselves today after the zero interest rate policy stopped is most companies have one of the following two problems. Either they need money and they had been raising money at a very low interest rate or no interest rate, okay, from other people. And now all of a sudden the money's expensive. So that's the first kind of problem. I need money, but the money's really expensive. The second problem is I would like liquidity. I'd like to sell the business, or I'd like to buy a business, and its valuation was driven up during ZIRP. And so now it's much harder for that company to be purchased because the valuation was kind of inflated, to oversimplify. So that's sort of where we find ourselves today. And, I'm not sure that this is wisdom, but what I would say is like finding ways to unlock those situations. One of those two situations is sort of how people are finding ways to make deals work. That's probably a much more long-winded and complicated way of saying like deal making is hard right now. So I guess what I would say is for most people, they don't get to do many deals. And oftentimes, there's many people we know, they do one in their whole life.
Right. Absolutely.
They're an entrepreneur. They build a business. They run the business. At some point in time, they get into a transaction. I've had several. So, my perspective is probably a little bit different. I wouldn't do it alone. Like, I think advice matters. It might not work exactly how you think it's going to work right now. And that might not be your business, because I've seen plenty of good businesses that have this valuation problem. And I've seen plenty of, businesses that are growing that would probably be growing faster if they could feed more money into the machine, but the money's too expensive. Right. So you can have a really good business and just kind of be stuck right now. So, don't get disheartened. The other thing I'd say is like, most businesses don't get sold, they get bought. So anything you're doing to just make a better business, regardless of whether you're seeking an outcome or not, is not wasted time. Right. And I think sometimes
hold on that for a second, because that's a really great point. Like a lot of people are like, in 10 years, I'm going to have my exit. So I'm building this business to be sold. But you're saying it's not opposite of that. It's just you're building it to be bought, and you're doing it the right way, right? I mean, I've always been told like you got to build a business like it's going to be sold, even if you're never going to sell it, because you have to do all the things right. So
yeah, I think of it, at the risk of this, like occasionally offends like people that have done one of these. So just back up. I've done a couple. You can think of companies like a product. A product has attributes. It has a price, right? So if we used a car, we could say, is it a truck? Is it a car, right? Does it go fast? Does it go slow? Does it come with whatever? It has a set of attributes for a price, right? And someday you and I go to the car lot and we look and we find the one that we want that has the right number of things that we want at the right price. Companies are not that different, right? So we have a company, it's got X millions of dollars of revenue or X billion dollars of revenue. It generates XYZ dollars of profit, right? It has this many employees. It's in this many countries. They make these kind of products. Well, when you do this professionally, you can look at a company and kind of just see like, oh, I should pay between A and B, right? And that's a little bit of the part that got broken right now, because that spread of A to B, which in our line of work we would call the bid-ask spread, got a little broken because of the valuation issue.
Yeah.
So if you're in that spot, what you do is you just report right back to this company that you're running and the metrics that go along with it, and you just build a better product. Yeah. Right. Sometimes when you oversimplify it like that, it actually makes it a lot easier to figure out what to do. I find many business owners, and I do a lot of board work too, many CEOs get a little stuck in the minutia when things get hard. And that makes a lot of sense to me. A lot of people that are in those kind of roles know how to grind to get out of something.
Yeah.
You might not get out of it.
Any techniques or any thoughts around that? I mean, for example, I've always, like my dad always told me, he's like, well, you have a decision, put all your things on this side, all your pros and negatives. I mean, that's a very simplistic way of doing something, but it sometimes makes it very evident, or ranking things 100%. From 1 to 10. Is there anything that you've done to help make decisions in those times?
Yeah. So specifically on the business thing, I do think one thing you can do if you're a business owner that is a good sanity check is people can help you figure out what the valuation is. They can figure out that A to B. And probably the first question is, if someone were to offer you something between A and B, would that satisfy you and would you take it? Or would your constituents or shareholders take it? If that answer is no, report right back to the business. And then the next step is figure out what are the things that would have made A and B bigger, right? And, you'd be surprised at the number of people that kind of don't go through the simple exercise of sort of thinking about ahead of time, like what is the outcome I'd be satisfied with?
Yeah.
Some of that I think boils down to how personal the company is to them. Mm-hmm. I found the most challenging valuation discussions to be with founders, not surprisingly.
Right.
Emotionally
attached. Same as like
totally.
Your house, your home, different things you've done.
Totally.
Yeah.
And I hope you've never been through this, but most people have it sometime in their life. At some time in your life, you go to sell a house. The one that I remember was I built a house in Rochester, New York during a peak and had to sell it during a trough. And there's a day where the real estate agent tells you, like, you're not going to like how much your home's worth. Right. And if you've had that experience, just amplify it. If it's a business that maybe you've poured, half your career into or your whole career. Right.
Yeah.
That's the other reason why I think people should get professional advice. If you're going to go through something like that, like you're going to want to believe the person that you're working with. And so, I think getting advice when you're thinking about those things is really, really, really important. It might help you reconcile what to do. By the way, that reconciliation could absolutely be, I'm going to do nothing right now. but you'll be at peace with it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I want to touch on something else too, because when I've seen you move from some different companies, there were some mergers and things like that. One of the things I saw, I follow you on LinkedIn, obviously, and like I see like praise, like, hey, they just killed it. They got the sale. Hey, looking for some more great people. Who knows somebody? Like you were like a champion, a cheerleader as well at the same time. Talk about a little bit of that and how that's impacted the growth that you've seen. Because I think you've been able to recruit some significant like team players to your team because of that, because people want that praise, they want that recognition, but they also want to know that they're supported. So can you talk about that a little bit and how you bring that into any business?
Yeah. First of all, I really appreciate that. That's not everybody notices those things. So one thing that has been true in all these situations is, they're fantastic teams. And much of what I do has either involved a major transformation for the sake of growth or restructuring. So I don't really do run jobs. You'll have other friends that do those. That's not what I do. So for me,
what's a run job, just in case somebody doesn't know?
It's like the CEO of Coca-Cola right now is running the company. It's a run job.
Yeah.
Right. I would be the worst CEO for Coca-Cola. I want to go change stuff, grow stuff,
Yeah. That
change the product.
Yeah.
I want to go do that stuff. Right.
That's right.
And I want to do it fast.
Yeah.
So first thing is like when you get some clarity around what you do, then you can start to try to find the people that want to do that for a living. The trade-off for them oftentimes is, the person that's going to go to Coca-Cola is going to have certainty in their life. Just like many, my dad and his dad, when they went to Kodak, you worked there your whole life. That isn't how it works in my universe, right? People are spending 2 to 5 years in a job, right? And when that is done, that might be because that company was acquired and then they got to find another job at another company. So that reinforcing loop for me is really about making sure people that might not see it this way realize that that's success. Right. So, as an example, Palo Alto is a wonderful company. The CEO is going to be revered as one of the best CEOs during this period of time. Is exceptional. I wouldn't want to work at Palo Alto. Like that's not what I would want to look to do. And so if when there's an acquisition, some people say, hey, like I'm going to move on back to little companies, you'd be surprised at the number of people from big companies that don't understand that and sort of say, oh, wait, you're going to go back to this other company I've never heard of before.
Yeah.
So I like to celebrate those successes and those wins because most people don't know how much work goes into it. Mm-hmm. And then, the second effect for me is I just have a great network of really talented people that I can call on when I need to get stuff done. And, I also got through a point in my life where I sort of used to think of things through the lens of dollars. Like, did the team make money? Right. And now I sort of keep track of like the number of people that worked for me that became CEOs and have had successful exits or got into really big leadership roles. That means a lot more to me.
That's pretty awesome. I mean, that's a legacy, right? So,
Yeah. For me, it's funny. Maybe it turns out to be that. I don't think of it that way. I think of it as giving back. Like I think of, Keith Block was the co-CEO at Salesforce, has helped me a lot in my career. Mark Hurd helped me a lot in my career. The EMC team, Pat Gelsinger, Joe Tucci, David Gould, like all those people put a lot of time and effort into me. So for me, it's a little bit more of like, you try to give some of that back.
Give them that back. Yeah. That's awesome. That is, and that's how it's supposed to be. Right. And
I think so.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think so.
When I hear, there's a lot of giving back that I know that I hear in your voice, from the restaurant to the, businesses and things like that. I know that I want to talk about some cybersecurity and AI with you in a minute.
Yeah.
But before we do that, I want to talk about some of the other giving back that you've been doing in Kenya and talk about your involvement there. because I think that's important to remember. And we talked off camera a little bit about the joy they have, like in the orphanage and different things like that. And I want to talk about that and how in this country, like things have been.
Yeah. So, like a part of this story is just, Laura, my wife, and I are Christian. Her family, her father was a pastor, started a church. So there's a church thread here. That's really kind of not the core point of the story. But those type of people in that community sooner or later will give you access to somebody that jumps out as special. And Jim and Susie Horn, who run Operation Give Hope, are a couple of those people. They have been missionaries in Kenya for 30 years. So, if you kind of roll
that's a significant time.
Roll the clock back.
Yeah.
That means you left the United States and landed in a hut. So today it's a much larger operation. There's sort of a campus.
They don't live in a hut anymore.
No hut. No. They but there are still people.
But that's where they started.
That's where they started.
Yeah.
Right. And talk about commitment and facing adversity. You're like, those people have faced more than most.
Yeah.
And so I think what has happened for me more recently and why that project was so special is we're very fortunate here. It's really easy to lose track of that here. Many people here that wind up in difficult circumstances at some stage made a decision that wound up getting them into a difficult circumstance. And listen, I think life is all about making those decisions, and you get yourself into some stuff, you get yourself out of some stuff. But if you think about some of these people in Kenya, they didn't even have the chance to make a bad decision. They were born into a pretty bad situation. And so it's a place where you can have a really, really big impact on people's lives who face a level of adversity that most of us wouldn't make it through. And yet, if you spend some time with them, and you've seen some of the pictures, the kids on that campus that are going to school have more joy. There's more joy on a playground in Kenya covered by children who have nothing than there is at the playground in Wash Park. And so there's something in there. There's something to learn in there, probably both about the kids in Kenya and the kids in Wash Park. And so that tapping into that joy has been an inspiration. It's also a little terrifying. Just a short number of years later, those kids are going to be at a fork in the road that is often very, very difficult. Many of those kids were born as a result of some sort of sexual assault, or it's a difficult place, right? And so we try to get them through this period of time, and they're going to face some adversity later in their life too, as they try to sort of matriculate. But yeah, we're in the moment. That place is a very special place. People can have an outsized impact. It keeps you grounded and reminds you. And, you kind of brought this up, in a society where we are having a hard time with figuring out what our standards are. It is a stark contrast and a strong reminder of maybe some of the things people ought to consider as their value system.
Yeah, 100%. I've had a lot of conversations with people because I was fortunate enough to go to third world countries when I was in high school, and I was able to build school buildings and do some different things and see things and see that people lived with buildings that had no windows, and that the toilet, the hole that they had drained into the ditch that was right in front of their house. And, it's not a nice place to live. Not nice. They didn't choose that life to be born into that, but it happened. And the things that you take for granted immediately are gone, just gone when you see that circumstance. And I've felt that every like US kid should be sent off for at least a week.
Yeah.
I mean, at least a week. I mean, because after the first 3 days of like, whoa, this is real, like I think they probably got the point. But like if they could spend longer term somewhere else and understand culture, because you've traveled a ton,
Yeah.
I've traveled a ton. I think there's something to be said about when you can meet other cultures, meet other people. It like you can get to common grounds really easy with people, but you can also see how people find joy in something as small as like, I picked this coconut for you and this is your gift. And they had nothing else.
Right.
Or they made the chicken that they had for that whole week
Right.
for you to sit down and have a meal with them.
Right.
Right. I mean, and that was all they could get. That was the best they could give.
That's right.
It wasn't the remainder. You know, I remember there was a story about, you know, hey, you want a bite of an apple, right? And that apple, it's like you take all the bites out of it and give you the last bite. Is that what you want?
Right.
No, you don't want that. You would give the first of it.
Right.
And that's the principle of giving and having a giving heart and a servant heart. You know, I think a lot of that is what we've gone into here, and the joy, like we were talking about toys we had when we were a kid. You know, I mean, we had a couple Matchbox cars that were running around in like limestone probably or whatever, ruined and rusted, but like I had to make my planes, you know?
Yeah. Remember when you found like the straight stick and you're like, oh, this stick can be the sword, right?
Sword. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the food part is, and there probably is some connectivity here between, for me, just because of the restaurant, but you know, most of those people, the kids that we fund, right, eat generally 2 meals a day, which I think most Americans would say is less than they eat, one. And then two, if school is Monday to Friday, let's just say, that might be the last meal they have before they come back to school.
Yeah, on Monday.
Yeah. So, you know, it's just a perspective most of us don't have.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I think, you know, for those at home, I mean, I know I have kids that I'm wanting to get them somewhere else so that they understand more, you know, and you could do it right here in the US too. There's no doubt. There's circumstances, there's poverty, there's ways of helping, there's ways of doing it. But I think in creating that in your own culture to do that every day and looking for those things is important. That is a huge key to me, and the happiness that we all will have, and that giving back was kind of that example that brought us on this path here.
Yeah, I mean, probably a lot of people that are going to see this have really hard jobs, right? So if you're going to go through and you're going to do all that fancy M&A stuff and all that hard work we talked about, I think you want probably get to a place sooner or later where you want to believe you did it for something. You know, if you're trying to answer that question, you know, you might try a little bit of giving.
Yeah. I mean, there's always been that statement of the more you give, the more you get.
Yeah.
Not to be taken advantage of, but like,
right.
You know, in a good way. Let's shift a little bit. So Avaya right now, you've got a lot of different things going with cybersecurity. There's all sorts of different things. I was talking to someone just literally yesterday, and they opened my eyes to the pipelines in Alaska. Like every sensor is a potential for for an attack. There's stuff everywhere. I mean, we have quantum computing that is here.
Yeah.
We have things that are going to break. Right. It is not like a if, it's a when. And so how you combat that as a company without just being like, oh, I give up. I mean, it's like, you know, we're going into a very, very high tech like place right now. And, you know, AI is part of that. But like, you know, if you think about the idea of AI with quantum computing being able to make 500,000 attacks in a very short period of time, you've got to be able to figure that out. And I know there's sensors that even do the heat, but they've been able to get around that. It's like, I mean, because they're burning up so much energy to do that. So talk about that a little bit, and then, you know, we'll probably talk more on that.
Yeah. So maybe this is like, maybe we start with like just a pinch of history, because I think it will help.
Yeah.
Why now is different. So, there used to be in business, people would measure these things called K waves, and it was basically like, you know, something meaningful was happening in the world. So think like industrial revolution. We've kind of gotten more recently to the big changes have an even bigger impact. So they've been referred to more recently as super cycles. And so the base one that started this was the movement to computers. And then even inside computers, it went from kind of like big mainframes all the way to now you have personal computers. The second wave was then we networked those computers. Okay. So now all of a sudden we have people that are working digitally, doing some things that they couldn't have done otherwise. And now we've networked them so those things can communicate with one another. Then we moved to a wave where all of a sudden the number of those devices spread radically because now effectively our mobile phones do as much as any of one of those original computers. So then we kind of got into the fact that this went mobile, right? What's coming next in these waves that's happening now, and we're going to start with AI. What makes AI different is each of these waves built upon one another, which is why you saw compounding value in the stock market. It also is why you saw compounding impact in your life, right? So it's why for most people, whether they realize it or not, the reason the world feels so much faster than it was is those super cycles compound, and therefore something that did used to take a long period of time is taking a much shorter period of time. All right. So if all that's true, and now we're doing this AI thing, what is the thing that makes AI different? It takes advantage of all that compounding that happened. But on top of that, it's recursive. And this is kind of the hard point. None of these other super cycles actually were able to further push forward that super cycle. It still counted on us to do it. It's like we had to go network the computers.
Right. So there's individuals that are going in there actually
doing
something happen, plugging something in.
Yeah. Right now, while we're sitting here choosing to use our time to do this, there's an AI system that is recursively training itself. So the reason that's such a big deal,
and not just one,
right? The reason that's such a big deal is all that compounding has happened. And now AI is able to improve itself without our participation. That's a big deal.
Yeah.
So we're going to choose two paths.
Yeah.
One is for good and one is for evil.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll start with the for good one. So one of the consequences of that is in quantum, there's some pretty hard problems to solve. You have to solve for what's called qubit stability, and you've got to solve basically for error rates. All right. If there's some quantum person watching this, like, don't pick on me. I'm picking two that are easy. All right. The AI systems probably will help us solve for both of those problems. That's never happened before. So even though quantum doesn't necessarily have anything directly to do with AI, AI will accelerate our ability to get to better quantum. And then quantum itself unlocks a different way for us to do math. All right. So that probably is the unlock where you could foresee people taking on like physics challenges, like that whole realm of, get to power that is $0, zero cost power, get to a place where somebody figures out how to break gravity. Right.
Yeah.
So that's the for good path. Right. On the for evil path, the other thing this compounding has done is it has made it easier and less expensive to commit a crime. On top of that, you can commit a crime from any place in the world now. And for the most part, the institutional structure that is countries and governments and hierarchies and all that really haven't figured out a way to play nice with one another. I know that's shocking. So, the first trend in cyber that became really problematic is it doesn't cost you a lot to do it. You can do it from anywhere, and the consequences are really low. Right?
Right.
Add the AI thing in, right?
Because I'll take a step back because you still need a human to go arrest you.
Yeah.
Right.
That's right. Somebody still got to go do that.
That's right.
All right. So why cyber is in such an unusual place is, and I'll use a couple of industry words just so this is informative. And this goes to your sensor point. The surface area has increased dramatically because of this compounding. And so what I mean by surface area in this case is some device thing can be a sensor that is networked. So if you go back and you look at kind of the growth of machines over time versus the growth of our population, the population curve does one thing and the machine curve does a radically different thing. So the surface area is much bigger, right? The cost to attack is much lower. The consequences are much lower. Ergo, you're going to get more attacks. Add in a system that at its worst can be used to find ways to take advantage of these, what would be called vulnerabilities in the surface area. And you've now increased the likelihood of success. So many of these things that I think have really advanced humanity all for good, right, can also be kind of turned the other way on you. And that's what you're seeing right now in cyber.
It always seems like that's the case. So there's an entrepreneur out there, there's a business right now that I know is probably trying to pivot, probably trying to protect, but there's also ones that are trying to fill the gap of where there's a need. Over the next 4 or 5 years, where do you think that company, that entrepreneur, that addition could be, where do you think the opportunities are for somebody that's looking to change the pivot of their company just a little bit to make sure that they can fill that gap and obviously make a better company that maybe will be bought?
Yeah. Yeah. So this is a fun format because we're going to go like way off script. I think this will be the part where, we're going to get like, who's that crazy guy in the comments? So in 1865, there was this economist, last name Jevons, and he was in that moment in time being challenged with coal production. And so there were improvements being made, and effectively people thought the cost of coal was going to come way down, right? And they thought the consequence of the cost of coal coming way down was going to be there were going to be no more jobs. And what happened was what is now generally called the Jevons paradox or the Jevons rebound. Truth was the energy cost went down and the amount of labor in the world went way up because the lower price of energy unlocked a lot of different things for people to do.
Right.
Right. There are other great examples of the Jevons paradox or the Jevons rebound happening. Like you and I are probably both old enough to remember when we had to go see a bank teller to get money.
Right.
Right. Well, when ATM machines first came out, everybody thought, well, there goes the bank teller. Well, we're sitting here today. There's a Chase a few blocks from here. There's still tellers in the Chase Bank. And with, the benefit of time, what we actually learned was in that period of time, yes, the number of tellers in a branch went down by like 12 to 16%. It's an imperfect measurement. But the number of branches increased by like 42%. So the point of all that is to say, the Jevons rebound sort of says, anytime we find a way to get massively more efficient at one thing, we seem to suck that time up by doing other things. And so what I think is going to happen over these next few years, driven in mainly by AI, is the type of jobs are going to change. So at Avaya, we work in a contact center business. I think that's an easy business for people to understand. There's like contact center agents. Right now, people are challenging the industry by saying, well, aren't all the agents going to go away? Like, no, the agents aren't going to go away. They're going to get paired up with AI. They're going to do a better job. And that's going to allow a company to offer a new service or a different service. It's going to allow a company to be more competitive. And so what I think will actually happen, and I've modeled this for Avaya because it matters to us, is contact center jobs will grow by, call it 3 to 5%. All right. That's still growth. That's not contraction. But the software portion of that TAM grows substantially. So just kind of like give you an example. There's about a $300 billion labor market in contact center, about $30 billion in software. If you kind of run through the model that I just described, by 2030, you wind up with $580 billion of labor. And then you wind up with a much larger portion that's software. So you're creating a bigger aggregate. I think if everybody can just take a break and kind of not doom scroll the AI pages, move the cyber thing aside for a second, that is legitimately scary. But just like, is AI going to implode the economy? I don't think so. I think people are going to have to rethink their jobs. So let's bring that all the way back to the entrepreneur. The first person that can go rethink their job is that entrepreneur. And what I would challenge an entrepreneur to think about today is, how do I build $1 billion business by myself? And I think if you started to try to build $1 billion business by yourself, taking advantage of the tools that are in front of you from AI, you might find you can more cheaply, quickly scale an idea in a business. And so what we might see happen, the best entrepreneurs in the world might wind up with 10 individual businesses that are highly automated versus just trying to scale one big business. So I'm actually super excited about this. If I wasn't doing what I was doing right now, I would go try to think of $10 billion ideas that can scale at, call it 1 to 20 people and get them all launched and then ride the ones that are working.
Mm-hmm.
But I would also expect the ones that work to work for less time. So I'm super bullish on people that are creative and entrepreneurial. I think this is like the most magic time in all of history for those people. You have access to an incredible tool set to let you go pursue that. That is not where you and I were when we were kids on a farm.
That's right. Yeah.
So you can doom scroll, get all freaked out.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Or you can report right back to 1865 with this Jevons dude and use these tools to unlock businesses that other people haven't thought of with a competitive advantage over anybody else that kind of has currently at an industrial scale. I think it's an incredibly cool time.
I agree with you. And I've talked a lot about, like, we're in a high tech place, but we're also in an agrarian place.
Yeah.
There still needs to be food, right? There still needs to be like, the trades, I was meeting with a group in Nashville a couple days ago, and it was about the trades, and it was, people that install HVAC, people that weld, people that do things like that are very interesting, because you're not going to be able to get a robot out there probably very easily anytime soon for it to be automated. So the trades are certainly there, plumbing, those types of things. There might be, who knows what innovation is going to happen there, but there's that. But then there's also, like what you're saying about leveraging. I mean, you're talking about leveraging hundreds of potential employees, right? And each employee now is worth, or team member is worth, like 10. Because of the output they can do. So you could have $1 billion company with 20 people. I mean, that is a significant amount of revenue per person, which is amazing, which also then frees up time to do more things. Because I also believe that, like, human authenticity is going to be a market that nobody is really understanding is there yet. And that is, like, since COVID, I think there was a lot of, like, disenfranchised, I don't know how to say it, like distancing, from people. And it was a mental thing. It was a physical shift. There was some other stuff there, but I think there is a connectiveness us as humans need to have with each other. Not everybody. There's a lot of different brain types, right? Some people are very happy to be by themselves. That's totally fine.
We probably all need it. So some of us don't know it.
That's right. And we should all be around people that don't necessarily think the same way we think, because then you can actually make some decisions. That's the way it used to be. You would have to take the opposing viewpoint and argue it, opposing of what you believe. And you're like, oh, now I see actually a valid point over there. but I think that's been a bit lost. But I think that there's this connectivity where, yes, you can do your workout through your apps, but people still have a craving of being together, of hiking together, of talking, of having, like, restaurant, having that, like, that relationship. And I think there's another industry that will start to shape around that. And that's something I don't think that's being talked about very much. And that's very basic. I mean, that's a human need.
There's at least two things in there that I've spent a fair amount of time thinking about. The first is just, like, if you distill these CEO jobs down to their most basic element, I get paid for my judgment. Grok doesn't do judgment. So, that's not going away. And then the second one, that one's heavy. This one is lighter, but I think cooler. It doesn't have taste. Like, and it's not going to.
Right.
So, like,
so you're talking about all the arts and all the
humor.
What about humor?
Humor. Like, so, one of the things I think is fun is there's a a podcast I'll forget the name of, but they play jazz artists, AI created jazz music, and they know it's AI 100% of the time.
Yeah.
And so it's just one small example, and I'm sure the music will get better with time and all that will happen. But I do think like we're not going to get to a place where we're going to hand off judgment and taste to the computers.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you're right. You can build businesses around both those things.
Yeah. I mean, there are businesses right now where they're AI friends, right?
Yeah.
And now you have a friend, but that a friend probably agrees with you all the time. Do you want that all the time? I mean, when is that going to be worn out? Like, it's like, okay, I have somebody that's always my yes person next to me. It's like, at some point, you don't want that.
Yeah. And we'll pick on, we'll go back to this restaurant. So the sommelier at our place right now, his name is Chris. He's fantastic. And part of what he brings to an experience is he's traveled the world. He has oftentimes been in a vineyard, when he's showing you a bottle of wine, and he comes with a story. And so you're getting taste and judgment, and you're getting the storytelling and the connectiveness. And, I could tell you, we could probably sit down and whip up Gemini or ChatGPT or Grok and say, we would like a fantastic Italian wine that is dry and has bright fruit, high acid. And it would probably give us a list.
Right.
And I can assure you that Chris would do a better job of selling us a bottle of wine.
Yeah. Yeah. Because there's going to be a story.
Yeah.
And that's what you always are going to go into, especially around brand and marketing, like we've been in, right? So it's 100%. So, all right, let's go to AI. So I posed a question to you to think about before you came on. What will AI need from us in 50 years?
Yeah. We're going to need to answer the question of what fulfills us. So this seems to be one of those questions that I thought about this. You gave me enough time, which was good because that was not an easy question. So I think all these labor shifts are going to happen. So like first of all, 50 years is a long time.
I think about what's happened in 50 years.
Right. So like
it is significant.
Yes.
From 50 years ago, there were no, there might have been a computer, but like there was nothing like that. We had rotary phones, probably party lines. You had no keyboards. You had typewriters. You didn't even maybe be able to back up the typewriter. You had to do it right. So, think about that to where we're at today.
So point one, let's just make sure everybody heard you.
Yeah.
It's not 5, it's 50.
50.
Right.
50. So, because everybody right now is saying, how can I take advantage of AI to make my life better, make things interesting, innovate? Yeah. They're not thinking about in 50 years with this cycle that is compounding, what will happen and what will AI need from us? Because it's no longer what I need from AI. That's already going to be accomplished in probably 5 years.
Yeah.
Right.
So I'm going to start at the end and maybe I'll try to walk backward a bit.
Yeah.
There's going to be more robots.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. They're not all going to look like us. There's going to be more specialized robots.
Which why do they feel like they need to make robots look like dogs and people? Like, it doesn't make any sense to me.
No. The most successful robots right now are actually, not shockingly, structured to deliver the task that they're set off to deliver.
Right.
And there's some great examples of that. But one, there's going to be a certain amount of labor that is taken care of by something that's robotic. And by the way, this, but these folks wouldn't, like, I'm chairman of a board of a company called Ripcord that has built robots to read documents. So you take big chunks of paper, hand it over to the robot reads it, scans it, pulls all the words off it, digitizes it, all that sort of stuff. So like, I'm not like way out over my skis on this robot thing.
Yeah.
Right. So I think there's going to be more robot participation in the workforce. The consequence of that is there will be probably more jobs that you can use your brain for. All right. And now the core of your question was, what is the AI going to need from us? Well, and I said, we're going to have to answer a question of fulfillment. Well, the part that's interesting about the computers is they generally kind of go work on the problem you put them on. So we're going to have to know what problem we want to put them on. In 50 years from now, that might be a much bigger problem. So I'll give you a crazy example. That might be how do we colonize Mars? That might be, how do we beat gravity? That might be, how do we have free energy? Right? Like, there are some of these big, thorny, sticky problems that we haven't been able to kind of solve, that people have wanted to solve for a long time. And if you stack AI and quantum, you add a 50-year time horizon, you remove some of the necessity for us to focus on manual tasks so we can think more, we might go try to answer some really big questions. Now, if we don't answer that fulfillment question with something big, some big, hairy, audacious goal, I sort of fear that we won't answer it. And then we'll just keep doing the things we're doing now, but more of it. And, I don't know how you feel about right now, but like, I wouldn't want to do more of what we're doing right now 50 years from now.
Right.
Like, just more of this.
Right.
This doesn't, like, we spend most of this time talking about seeking out ways to be fulfilled.
Right.
Right. AI makes zero of that easier. So I think what AI is going to need from us is it's going to need some big, hairy, audacious goal.
Yeah.
And I think we probably need that too.
Yeah. I think that's the humanity side of it that I think is overlooked as well.
Yeah.
Because, you can fake emotions with AI, but you can't truly have that emotional connection, right?
Yeah.
As an individual, when you walk in conjunction with people, there is an electromagnetic, like sometimes you're repelled from people, sometimes you're attracted to people, and there is that electromagnetic field that we have.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know that we know the answer or can think about it, but I think it's a question that we should be thinking about.
We certainly should. If we don't sort of track to answering your question, I don't think it will be a good period of time to just let whatever's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
That probably you wind up down this path where there's more cyber stuff going on. So I would like nothing more than somebody in a leadership role to come up with some big societal goal that, people can kind of march toward. We haven't had one of those for a while. And, just take like a handful of sort of interesting things. Like, I still think it's pretty amazing when Elon launches one of those rockets and then catches it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, okay.
Yeah.
I didn't see that one coming.
Yeah.
So on a 50-year time horizon, we ought to do something big.
Yeah.
Energy ought to be free, or we ought to be well on our way to a different planet, and that should be happening because in tandem, we're working with AI. We're taking advantage of all they can bring to the table to help answer bigger questions and solve bigger problems.
Beautiful. Well, I think that's a good start today. Maybe we'll come back and do this again.
Okay, cool.
In 6 months or so.
It's fun.
That's another episode of Regenerative Inspiration. Patrick Dennis, and I think there are a lot of things to think about. Leave the comments. We're going to be on all the different platforms. You can find us. Also, we'll leave a link to the nonprofit cool. that you could support if that is what you would like to do. But I think for all of us, I think we all need to go out and do more, appreciate the people that are around us, not be stuck in the cycle that is recurrent that we're not happy with. Figure those things out and be aware of the different challenges that are coming, but also the opportunities that are coming. And so I think it was great. Thanks for coming on today and really appreciate it.
It was really, really fun. It was good to see you. Thanks for having me.
All right. Till next time.